So we're back with more Angry Birds, and today we're going to be taking this application and we're going to be implementing a method from the delegate protocol. In previous videos, we talked about implementing two methods from the UI table view data source. Now we'll be implementing a method from the UI table view delegate. So what we'll be doing is making it so that when you click on one of these cells, a check mark appears on the right-hand side. We'll say that we're confirming that the birds are angry, or maybe making a bird sighting of one of these birds. So first we're going to want to implement one of the functions, and it is going to be the table view function DidSelectRow at index path. So here we see that one of the arguments to this function is DidSelectRowAt with the index path that's going to tell us which cell has been selected. So in here, we'll collect our cell. Let cell equal self dot table view dot cell for row at, and we'll see the argument that's expected is the index path. So we'll pass the index path in. Good. And you'll notice that this method returns us an optional UI table view cell. So that means that it might return us a cell or it might return us nil. So here we're going to use optional binding to ensure that we are only doing something to this cell if it can be returned. If let cell equals self.tableview.cell for row at index path. Inside of our optional bind, this variable is in scope and is definitely has a value. So now we'll say cell dot accessory type equals, and we'll be given some options here. We have this UI table view cell dot accessory type. This is an enum, and we can choose from several of the options that iOS gives us by default. We'll be choosing checkmark here. Now, when we run our application, we can see that if we click on a cell, we obtain a check mark on that cell. Now if we scroll down, wait a second. Why do these two cells have check marks? We hadn't even scrolled down far enough to click on these to put the check marks there in the first place. The reason for that is one of the things that iOS does underneath the hood in order to save memory on the device. So let's take a look. While you have your simulator running, you have the option inside of Xcode to click on your memory graph debugger. So in the very bottom pane, next to the button that you use to debug the view hierarchy, you can also debug the memory graph. It looks like 3 circles with some lines connecting them. Let's go ahead and click on that. All right, so this is a memory graph for my application. It lets me see which objects are allocated at the time that I click on the Debug Memory Graph button, and it's helpful for profiling our applications and determining if we have memory leaks or possibly other defects. So here on the left, you can see an outline of the objects that are allocated for our application. At the top, you can see the type of object that's been allocated. Here we have birds, and next to it you see the number 18. It it looks like we have 18 birds currently instantiated and allocated in our app. That makes sense because that's how many birds we return from our service right now. It's an array of 18 birds. However, when we scroll down to bird cell, we notice that our table only has 11 bird cells. The reason that we don't have as many bird cells as we have birds is that the cell is a portion of the view, and our view on iOS will only ever need as many cells as can be displayed on the screen at one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus one more so that it is ready to go on screen immediately when we scroll up. This is the reason that iOS needs an estimated row height and a row height for table views. It divides the height of the screen in an orientation by the amount of height that the cell will need to determine how many of them might need to be visible on screen at once. And then when we scroll, it reuses cells that it has already used. If we go back to our code, you'll see that the thing that we are setting the check mark on isn't the bird itself right now, it's the cell. And so since we've set the accessory type to a check mark, it stays that way when the cell scrolls off screen at the top and is then reused at the bottom for the next bird that we need to show on screen. So instead of connecting the information about the check mark to the cell, we need to connect the information about the check mark to the data itself and then display the check mark or not based on the data that we're putting into it right before it appears on screen. We'll do that in the next video.